And when it comes to something, let's say like Mithra, a gentleman like David Ulansey, one of the world's leading experts on Mithraism, he's not going to have time to look at stuff like this. He's not going to be interested in it. Most of the scholars aren't going to take the time to look at this, although some are starting to look at it now because they're starting to realize the need to. People like Ben Witherington are starting to talk about it on their blogs. They're starting to reflect the fact that more and more people are hearing about this and asking questions about it.
Now, you're president of Tecton Apologetics. You deal with these issues all the time. Give us the names of some of your other internet partners and sites that people can go to in order to find information about the Christ myth thesis.
Perhaps one of the leading ones right now, and one I link to quite a bit, is by a fellow named Glenn Miller with 2 N's, and it's called The Christian Think Tank. Now, Glenn does not do this full time. He is a businessman by trade, and he just posts articles occasionally these days, maybe like once every 2 or 3 months. Some people have compared him to an elephant, whereas they've compared me to a horse. Like, I run around real fast, and he just sort of plods along, knocking people over. His articles are like 50 pages long at the shortest sometimes, but he gets the job done. He does a lot of detailed research. He knows his business.
Give us some more.
His address is christian-thinktank.com.
Who else is working in this field?
Well, right now you just have some people blogging. You have people like Ben Witherington, scholar. He's got a blog, and you find it at benwitherington.blogspot.com. You'll find some of the other people getting into it very briefly, like N.T. Wright. You'll find people like Darrell Bach briefly mentioning it. And there's a new book out called Reinventing Jesus, a relatively new book by a trio of authors, Komaszewski, Sawyer, and Wallace. And they address this too. They address some of the pagan copycat theories in their book.
How do we get the truth down to the public square? It seems the media is able to just catapult these elephants, throw these false views out, and the common people receive it immediately. Does it take a long time for the truth to filter down to that popular level?
We have the same media advantage as they do, and it's really just a matter of trying to get attention to what we're doing. Programs like this one, books like the ones I'm producing right now, we just need to keep doing that. We need to take advantage of the technology the same way these other people are. We don't want to be left behind. I'm not speaking in the dispensational sense, I'm speaking in the informational sense.
Young people are our future. Teenagers that they see Zeitgeist, they see the film The God Who Wasn't There, they see Religulous by Bill Maher. You've written a new book where you're putting the cookies on the bottom shelf where even the kids can get it. What's the name of that?
Blowing the Doors Off. Blowing the Doors Off.
And what is that book about for teenagers?
That has several issues in apologetics, Christ myth being one of them, but many, many others as well, distilled into very quick-to-read, simple chapters with references for further reading when you need more depth. And I want to mention in particular what you said about the youth being exposed to this. The apologist James White, his daughter Summer, is attending college, and she recently wrote a blog entry for James White's blog in which she pointed out that films like Zeitgeist are becoming more and more popular on the college campuses. And she issued a call to action, in many ways the same as I have. We need to do something about this now. The time to sit back and wait was past before. It's definitely well past now. If you just let it sit here, these kids are going to be convinced by it. Other people are going to be convinced by it. They're going to come home from college, and you're not going to know what happened to them.
Shattering the Christ Myth by James Patrick Holding, Tecton Apologetics, your web presence. Let's go a little bit deeper into the Copycat Thesis. So basically these people this is warmed over historical hash. They're quoting old sources that are outdated. They're not even accurate in their presentations. They're not credentialed scholars in the specific area, and yet they're being published. The information's present on the web.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Like this book, for example, it's published by, it's a no-name press, although I understand it is a subsidiary of a larger press. And according to one of my resource guidance people in England, which is where these guys are from, this is a secondary arm of a larger publisher. They put books like this that they would ordinarily be ashamed of under that secondary publishing arm. Okay. So,
publish or perish.
Yeah, publish or perish, exactly. And then another leading proponent of this idea publishes the book with a publisher that otherwise puts out books on Atlantis, time travel, UFOs, and things like that. I mean, obviously very credible.
As we close, give us a view of the literature. What are the names of some of the proponents of the Christ myth theory, so that we can sort of, when we're navigating around the World Wide Web, we know who they are.
You talking about the pagan copycat
Yes.
theory? Okay. The pagan copycat theory, Timothy Freak and Peter Gandhi are one of the leaders. Another leader is a woman named Akira S., although she now goes by Dorothy Murdoch. She's recently gone by that name instead. Those are the two main proponents out there publishing books. Otherwise, you'll find just mainly the older sources like Kersey Graves, I mentioned, like Gerald Massey. That's who it mainly comes from.
So we're looking at a bibliography of some of these self-published books. These are the titles that have come up. Or G.A. Wells, is he?
G.A. Wells is not pagan copycat. He is mainly into the idea of the silence thesis, although he, again, has abandoned that most recently. By 2003, he had abandoned the Christ myth. He did initially have the idea that some stories of Jesus were stolen from pagan myths, but he abandoned that in his later books.
One quick claim also, the types and shadows that Christians point to in the Old Testament. Isn't there an argument that Christianity was invented in terms of...
Yes, and we need to devote an entire show to
There's
that.
a program there. James Patrick Holding, our guest on the Veritas Forum. Tecton Apologetics, the book Shattering the Christ Myth. In a few more programs, we're going to be dealing with the Mormon Defenders. Your book on Mormonism, your book, The Impossible Faith. Tecton Apologetics is the place to go because you're cutting edge. You're dealing with issues that are current. All the other apologetic literature is foundational. What you're doing is a capstone with regard to these current issues. And we have to stay current. We have to be anchored to the rock but geared to the times. And our message stays the same. Our methods change. One thing I appreciate about you is that you're engaging the culture. You're engaging the skeptics. You've got a whip. You're as sharp as a rapier. I mean, there's no way they're going to pin you against the wall. And you're open to debate these people. And you'll answer questions from our viewers, correct?
Yeah.
If they write you, email you?
They can email me. And if they want to come on the Theology Web forum as well, we have a community of people there.
Tell us again, how would they get to Theology Web to get to that format?
That'll be theologyweb.com, and I do have links to it on the front page of my site as well, and that's techtonics.org, tektonics.org. Remember to put in a .org, because if you put in .com, you'll get an engineering firm. And they ain't going to answer your questions.
And they don't know much about anything.
They ain't going to answer your questions.
You
about
welcome
Jesus.
people responding, contacting you at your email
I
there?
welcome all honest questions and inquiries. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again. James Patrick Holding, author of Shattering the Christ Myth, Tecton Apologetics. And please tune in on our next programs. We're going to do a number of other programs on the reliability of the New Testament documents and all of the other areas where we're in JP's area of expertise, historical apologetics. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.